The massive wooden doors of Bukhara's Grand Mosque shattered. A warlord, completely ignoring the sanctity of the space, rode his warhorse directly inside, surrounded by terrified priests and fleeing citizens. He ordered his men to rip the holy books from their wooden stands. As the pages scattered across the floor, he deliberately marched his horse forward, crushing the ancient calligraphy beneath iron-shod hooves. Looking down at the shivering, broken survivors, Genghis Khan delivered a sentence meant to freeze their blood. He told them that he was a divine punishment sent to them by God to repay them for their sins. We usually picture the Mongol leader as an untamed brute hacking his way blindly across Asia, but the destruction of Bukhara and the slaughter of millions across the region was a highly calculated act of revenge. The total annihilation of this massive civilization did not begin with a surprise attack. It was triggered entirely by one of the most astonishing, completely avoidable diplomatic failures in human history. This map shows the Khwarazmian Empire in 1206. Next door, Genghis Khan united the Mongol tribes, wanting a peaceful trade alliance with Shah Alauddin Muhammad. To prove his intentions, he sent 500 merchants across the border toward Otrar, loaded with precious silk and gold. But the local governor at Otrar was completely blinded by greed. He looked at the mountain of wealth, falsely accused the merchants of being Mongol spies, and slaughtered every single one of them. He kept the gold for himself. In the ancient world, you did not steal from the most powerful military commander alive and expect to survive. The news eventually reached the Mongol capital, making an immediate response inevitable. A local official's greed had suddenly created a massive geopolitical crisis. The entire fate of millions of people now rested on Shah Alauddin Muhammad, who had to choose between negotiating a tense peace or facing a catastrophic war. Surprisingly, Genghis Khan gave diplomacy a final chance. He held his army back and sent 3 royal envoys directly to the Shah's court. They carried a simple demand: punish the governor of Otrar and return the stolen wealth. The Shah's ego took over. Instead of apologizing, he ordered his guards to execute one of the Mongol envoys right there in the court. He then had the other 2 men's beards humiliatingly shaved, burned them, and sent them back. Harming a diplomat was universally recognized as an immediate declaration of hostilities. The Shah's actions were a deliberate, incredibly personal insult meant to humiliate the Mongol leader on the world stage. When the 2 burned, humiliated survivors returned carrying the severed head of their companion, Genghis Khan's patience evaporated. He climbed a sacred mountain and took a solemn oath to his gods to completely erase the Khwarazmian Empire from history. By mutilating those envoys, the Shah personally forced the hand of a man who viewed vengeance as a holy obligation. His blinding arrogance explicitly invited the terrifying wrath of a military genius to his own doorstep. The Mongol army descended like starving wolves. Their very first target was Otrar. They surrounded the city where the merchants were murdered, tore down its defenses, and burned it to ashes. Genghis Khan captured the greedy governor alive to deliver a poetic, agonizing punishment. He ordered pure silver to be melted into a boiling liquid and had it poured directly into the screaming man's eyes and ears. With Otrar reduced to cinders, the Mongol advance shifted toward a darker form of warfare as they moved deeper into the empire. They gathered the surviving prisoners from the towns they had already conquered. Terrified old men, women, and young children were forced to march at the very front of the Mongol formations as they approached their next target. When the defending archers stood on their walls and pulled back their bowstrings, they looked down, realizing they were aiming at their own terrified neighbors. They were forced to kill their own people to stop the advance. This strategy turned a city's own compassion into its greatest vulnerability, hollowed out its morale before the first Mongol blade even struck. The Mongol army's paralyzing reputation led them straight to Bukhara. When the massive cultural jewel fell, Genghis Khan violently desecrated the Grand Mosque. This violation of their sacred space was a deliberate tool used to break the citizens' remaining strength. By towering over them and declaring himself the punishment of God, he infected the survivors' minds with total despair. He wanted them to believe that this slaughter was entirely their own fault. This was the true horror of his campaign. He achieved total, absolute victory by convincing his victims that resisting his army meant fighting against the very will of God. Look at this map of the Mongolian Empire's massive boundaries. Following Bukhara, millions of people were systematically slaughtered, cities were entirely burned, and the Khwarazmian Empire was violently erased from the map, completely subsumed by Genghis Khan. But we have to ask ourselves, was this apocalyptic bloodshed always destined to happen? If Shah Alauddin Muhammad had simply swallowed his pride, punished the greedy governor, and respected the sanctity of those 3 envoys, the world would look incredibly different. Millions would have lived, and a massively wealthy, peaceful trade alliance would have flourished. Genghis Khan was an absolutely ruthless commander who committed unspeakable acts. But the facts show that in this case, the monster was quite literally invited through the front door by the catastrophic arrogance of the people he destroyed. Now, I want to hear your take on this. Tell me in the comments below. Did the Shah single-handedly destroy his own empire through his ego, or was Genghis Khan always destined to conquer them no matter what he did? Let me know, and I'll see you in the next one.